Seems fair to me. Fair decision. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it unacceptable by any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. Lots of hot topics in this very overheated week. Let's meet the panelists who have agreed to discuss them, starting with Wendy Weiss from KTRS, Bill McClellan from your Post-Dispatch, Ray Hartman from KTRS, the Riverfront Times, and RawStory.com, and Mr. Alvin Reed from the St. Louis American. Well, Bill, I wish I had a nickel for every time you sat in a courtroom and watched a legal case, and there was a very famous one, maybe even of national interest this week in St. Louis, when Stephan Cannon was on trial for the murder of the late retired St. Louis police captain Dave Dorn. And Cannon was found guilty, even though the main witness, Mark Jackson, could not produce a weapon. Police couldn't find one. He hadn't actually seen the crime, and he had told police, "I'll tell you anything you want if you get me out of jail." Wasn't a great prosecution, not a great witness, but nonetheless a victory for the Circuit Attorney's Office, huh?
Oh yeah, sure. And I thought that, you know, there was videotape involved, and it seemed like it was a difficult case, but I thought it worked out the way it should have. And hats off to Marvin Tier. He's the new prosecutor in Kim Gardner's office. And if you remember, back in September, Ms. Gardner went to court to ask for a special prosecutor for the Dorn case because it was going to be so important. And the judge, Michael Stulzer, said, "You're the elected prosecutor. You got to do it." And good for her, she hired Marvin Tier, and he's a former special prosecutor from the AG's office, and he was a municipal judge here in St. Louis, and he's a fine attorney. And this is the first case he's done for Ms. Gardner, and his first case in 22 years, he said in the paper today. And I apparently he did a great job. I wasn't there, but
I wrote a column about Marvin Tier about a decade ago at St. Louis Magazine. I had a first-person experience with him as a judge on a traffic court case, and I wrote it. And full disclosure, he sought the light and exonerated me. But he is just a remarkable guy. And you're right, Kim Gardner actually had tried in 2020 to get the case at that time sent to Eric Schmidt because apparently her prosecutor had a conflict of some sort. I will say this.
I think she just didn't have any experience prosecutors, right? Because there was not a conflict. That's what still survived.
Well, I don't know. Well, in any case, I will say this. You know, it was a victory, as you said. If Kim Gardner had lost that case, it would have been a major national news story. So there was some pressure on Marvin Tier, and I think he did a great job. And I do think it's good for the Dorn family and for all of St. Louis. He was a wonderful guy, David Dorn, and it's good that there's some closure.
I would and not taking away from anything from you know, the prosecutor's office, the prosecutor, I think I could have won that case. I mean, I don't care that the guy had, you know, lied at this part, whatever. Sammy the Bull Gravano testified he murdered 17 people with his bare hands and sent somebody to prison. I think that you had the testimony of someone who was there, and that's that.
I'm videotape.
And I'm glad it's over, as Ray said, you all said, for the family, because that was such an awful part of that night. You know, that he had gone up to try to help a friend when they received the alarm, and that awful thing happened. And so
But okay, today the judge dropped 3 charges against Mark Jackson, the guy who had turned state's witness against Stephan Cannon. And just as a legal principle, I mean, that's quid pro quo.
No, that happens
Well,
every day.
yeah, that's the way the
Exactly.
system works, though, Charlie.
I know, and it's a problem for me because we've had more than 3,000 wrongful convictions overturned, about 375 by the Innocence Project alone based on DNA evidence. We know that witnesses are just not that good.
Yeah, we do know that. We do know that. And that's the price you pay. But that's the cost of doing business. I mean, that's just how it's got to be.
And if you're going to get a witness from that night who was looting the pawn shop, you're not going to get
You're limited.
stellar character.
Right, you're
So
limited.
you're saying that a compromised witness is better than no witness?
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
absolutely.
See, I got
and
problems with that.
Also, the interesting thing about this case that we lose sight of is this was a national story. If
This
you
was a
remember,
national story.
Ann Doran went up to the Republican convention
Oh,
on
my
behalf
gosh,
of
that's
Donald
right.
Trump, and her daughters came out and criticized her.
They were not his
Excuse me,
daughters.
his
children,
excuse me,
her stepchildren.
excuse me, right.
Her
His daughters
stepchildren.
came out and criticized it. So this case had national, and it was covered today. I
Gosh, that's
wrote
right.
for Raw Story about it. This case was covered. They left out the victory. They just talked about. Somebody convicted in the BLM, right? Protester, convicted. But it was a big story nationally.
Well, let's move on to you, Alvin. Cori Bush, U.S. representative running for re-election, big August primary, was arrested this week outside the Supreme Court building. She's upset with the Roe versus Wade landmark ruling being overturned. Also this week, it was discovered that some former political operatives for the former U.S. representative, Lacy Clay, have started a dark money fund, a 501c4, which is quite legal, even though some people object to it. Basically, it's a PAC that raises money and the donors are anonymous. So where do you want to begin? With the arrest?
Well,
or?
I'll begin with the arrest because I believe, and I even beyond believe this, I think Cori Bush would have been arrested doing this whether she was running for re-election right now or not. I think she thinks it's the right thing to do, and I think it's the right thing to do too. And I think a lot of people in a lot of different positions, politics, business, whatever, are going to have to make some decisions like this. And it's just time. I mean, what is going on in the nation right now is so just disheartening and distasteful to me that, it's just time. I mean, either we're going to work, those of us who feel this way, to stop this now because it has to stop now, or else it's just going to keep going and going and going. So I have no problem with her and 16 other Democrats being arrested. I wish the day would come where some Republicans were out there too, because the fate of the nation is really in the balance right now. Now, as for this dark money, I mean, it's everything that you assail Greitens for and the Trumps for and different candidates for, and you're doing it yourself, so now you can't complain about that anymore. And I'm not speaking specifically of the Roberts campaign, but be it any Democrat. Okay, all right, next time somebody else does it,
Well,
don't say anything.
Democrats are doing it. The ACLU has a 501c4, dark money. George Soros has a dark money PAC. This is, Citizens United. That's what this is. You can have these PACs. You don't have to disclose your donors. I think in that case, I think there are a lot of people, whether they're with Boeing or Jewish organizations or with the police, they want Cori Bush out of there, but they don't necessarily want people to know they're donating.
Oh, I mean, okay, that's good, good for them. But to me, why don't you want people to know that you're donating? Right? I mean, what?
Privacy.
They won't do business with us or whatever.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
Well,
that's
well,
it.
fine. Well, then that's.
They don't want people picketing
That's-
or protesting
that's right.
outside their homes.
Well, as I kind of said, all right. To me, in my mind, it's on now. I am so beyond all this trying to hide and trying to all this. Look, which side are you on? Pick. Now, if you don't want her in office, give all the money you can to get her out of office, okay? And then can we just start really being honest about things? And I think that would help us.
Well, I think that you can be in favor of all the things you're in favor of, Alvin, and think that the country has gone too far, but think that Cori Bush's theatrical approach to things isn't the best way to go.
Well, I think it is in this case, and she's not alone. There's a lot of folks that got arrested, and I think it was an act of principle. I think I admire her for it, and I think that, as to your point about Citizens United, there's no one's ever suggested it's all on one side or another. I think probably the Republicans appear to be better at it right now, but I mean that can change, and that you're right, it's not one side necessarily. But
see, I'm not okay with elected representatives getting arrested. I mean, I know that they don't suspend
It's
their
called civil
citizenship.
disobedience.
I understand.
Well, I mean-
I understand. I just pro-life representatives.
I think
don't.
anyone
It
can
wouldn't
do what
bother
they
me.
want to do. I don't think it's effective. I don't think
I
that
think
the
it is.
Republicans who changed Roe versus Wade were shutting down Highway 6440. What
You
they
know-
did was they reconfigured state legislatures. They registered people to vote.
That's right.
They got the Supreme Court. I mean,
Excuse me,
lobbying
It
the
was-
state
it
house
was
and
50
Capitol
years
Hill.
ago.
It's
to
voting.
say,
It was
I guess
50 years
Martin
in the
Luther
making.
King wasn't
It did
effective.
not
He
happen.
I mean, I guess
Okay.
King
And then,
wasn't
like, okay,
effective.
and then,
You know,
like,
there
you're-
were people in
let's
this
let
town
it-
arguing against Martin about
And it's
that
right,
in the
right.
60s. No, I think it's a very effective, time-honored tradition.
Actually,
if a
I
pro-life
disagree.
woman
You know,
got
and-
arrested, I'd
would
say
be
good
okay
for
with that? Yeah,
Absolutely,
okay,
I would be.
okay.
Of course, I would.
You know what?
There's no problem with
in
that.
his autobiography, the former U.S. Congressman Barney Frank of Massachusetts, I think the book was called Being Frank, and he said, you know, look, if you want to get things done, you don't parade in the streets. You have to work the system. And he said, and if you look at it, when gay marriage was overturned, it wasn't because people were marching in the streets. They got it through litigation in the Supreme Court.
That's all fine and dandy. But I'm just telling you, as a black person sitting here, what you're talking about right now is like, oh, that's fine. Let's wait. Let's just wait till they
No,
overrule.
register people to vote.
Right. And
So
so the state of Mississippi can say we ain't gonna have interracial marriage down here, okay? Or like, how about we just vote all the black people out of this state? And the Supreme Court will say like, well, the state.
Do you really-
All right. Any
Yeah.
action necessary need to be taken now. I'm okay.
That
That's fine.
sounds.
Do you really
I mean,
think-
that sounds a lot like what was going on January 6th? And
No,
that
no,
doesn't-
no, no,
no,
no,
it
no,
sure
no,
does.
no.
It sounds-
That was
Sorry.
a violent insurrection.
What are you
Okay.
talking about?
No, we're not
Okay,
talking about,
any
was she
and
violent?
all
Whatever.
means-
Was she violent?
Any and all means, I believe, is what
No.
he just said.
No. Excuse
What did you
me.
say to that one guest we had a couple of weeks ago?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, but excuse me, but the violent insurrection attempt to end our democracy is not quite the same as peaceful disobedience.
Okay.
And
I'm
as
sitting in
far
the
as-
street till they come arrest me,
And here's the
okay?
deal. Here's the deal. Martin, by your definition, I guess the civil disobedience didn't have anything to do with the civil rights progress we had in this country, and it didn't have anything to do with ending the war when it did. I guess none of that mattered. I disagree with you a lot on this.
I do too.
Okay, you're on the record. You're not the first, and you probably won't be the last.
And we still have 15 minutes to go. So.
And time flies when you have a
I
good
didn't
time.
know what you've been doing. That's right. I'm on a show.
About 15 minutes with about till Alvin and I leave the set.
Couple of things.
Chain yourselves at the table.
Yeah, chain yourselves
Alvin
to
and
the
I ain't
table.
going anywhere. You all
Chain
can leave.
yourselves
Bill
to the table.
Clay Sr. endorsed Lucas Kunce this past week. Lucas Kunce is in that Democratic primary for U.S. Senate up against Trudy Bush. It was interesting because early on she was getting all the top endorsements, including from Sly James, Emmanuel Cleaver, and others. And
All of the establishment. Yeah.
well, if you consider them establishment, maybe so. But nonetheless, okay. What do you think about this? Is Lucas Kunce onto something? He got John Hamm to support him in a fundraiser as well.
See, I kind of think I was disappointed with the language that our esteemed former longtime congressman used. I thought it was, to me, it's kind of it's hypocritical to say that prejudice toward a woman because of her financial standing or blessings or whatever. She's an heiress. She wants to do well. She wants to serve the people of her state. And so when he uses language like Lucas Kunce wasn't born with a silver spoon, all of the populist tropes and all of that, wasn't born with a silver spoon, the only ball that just I just don't think that's necessary. And to me it's unkind. It's I thought when we go low, they go when they go low, we go high.
How did that work?
I'm sorry. No, but I think he's better than that. And I think if hate isn't going to win, you can't attack the woman who's a nurse, who has 6 kids, who wants to do something service related for her state, and she has decided to run for the Senate. I think there are other ways to wordsmith your way into any kind of criticism you have of her, but I thought it was snarky and it wasn't worthy of him, somebody of his stature.
I think history will remember Bill Clay as the premier civil rights leader in the history of our community. And by the way, he participated in a bank, Jefferson Bank civil disobedience that apparently you don't think is so good. I think that he's right. I mean, look, I'll be all happy to rush and vote for Trudy Bush Valentine if she's the primary, because she'll be all that stands
She
between.
might be.
Well,
She might be.
and if she is good, I'll support her. I will say this: you mentioned Citizens United. At her very first town hall, she got a question about Citizens United and turned to someone and said, "What did that do?" So I mean, it
I
suggests
think that's ugly, Ray. I think
ugly. It's what happened.
Yeah, I think they're-
ugly.
I think
she
she's,
didn't
you know
know
what
it
she's-
is.
She studied.
She didn't know what Citizens
Well,
United is.
nurse,
this is-
Ray.
I'm sorry, it's not ugly.
we-
It's a
That
fact.
is ugly.
Why is it ugly?
Because Jean Carnahan might not have known when she was appointed.
Then you could have
because to
pointed
take
out.
her-
I'm sorry, she's running. She's not running
No,
for the
no,
president of a.
Ray,
What are you talking
we've,
about?
We've criticized her for
Right.
not campaigning, and,
Right.
and I've criticized it too.
And we found
and,
why.
And the argument that her supporters would make is that so much of this politics is gotcha stuff. It's like,
Gotcha.
what would you do about Apello or whatever the town was in Syria? And the candidate said, what town is that?
Right.
You know, I mean,
No.
the fact that she
This was a
can't name-
landmark Supreme Court case about
Ray,
elections.
She's a
not,
nurse,
not
Ray.
everybody
A nurse.
knows
Well, then
all
she should
the
be.
Supreme
Then
Court
she should stick
cases.
to nursing. My point is, I don't. And by the way, I think
Well,
she.
a minute ago you were saying you'd vote for
I
her half a
will.
year.
She could stand
then-
between United, but she's not nearly as. And by the way, I had on Spencer Toder, who from St. Louis County, who I really don't know much about until I had him on. He would make a terrific senator, and you can tell talking to him that he knows the issues, as does Lucas Kuntz. Now, I think
Well,
Lucas
maybe he'll
Kuntz.
win the college
I
bowl
think
then.
Lucas.
Yeah,
No,
a lot
it's
of them-
No,
it's
hang on a second.
knowing the
Let me-
subject
Let me tell you
matter.
something. No, let me tell you something. I didn't
Jeez.
watch the whole speech that she gave to the
Right.
Chesterfield Democrats, but I did see the first 8 minutes or so. And she said she wants to attack opioids, mental health, and she wants to raise the pay for caregivers, like in the nursing homes. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And now I'm not saying
I
that
don't
she
think she's-
is the
I
next.
think that Lucas Kuntz is the only Democrat at this point. Spencer Toder, I really was impressed with, but I will say Lucas Kuntz connects outstate. I think in a three-way race, if it's Greitens and John Wood and Lucas Kuntz, the Democrats have it in play. Probably, and I don't know
say
if there's
Greitens?
a.
Well, oh, okay. Well,
Greitens not going to win it. Schmidt's going to
Well,
win it.
and I think he's got a
Oh,
chance to beat
Ray,
Schmidt.
Ray,
but he
Ray,
can't beat
there's no
Wood.
way he can beat
I
Schmidt.
think he can beat Schmidt because Schmidt sued all the school districts in the state.
please.
The idea that I like
he is the
Lucas
best.
Kuntz too, but the idea that you have to attack Trudy Bush Valentine.
I'm not-
oh,
what do you mean you're not doing
I'm just
that?
calling
That's
out
what
what
you
I
just
just.
done.
I'm calling out that she's not prepared.
That's gotcha politics.
It's not gotcha.
Yes, it is.
She's not ready for the stage.
Well, Ray, let me ask you
Wow.
this.
If we have her,
Let's
she's our
move on
candidate.
to someone
That's a
else you
little
admire
sexist.
deeply.
Yeah.
Mike Parson, governor of Missouri,
great guy.
said as opposed to giving everybody some sort of refund.
And he would know Citizens United, Ray, so you should like
Yeah,
him.
there you go.
Yeah, well,
There you go.
That
that's
qualifies
not
him.
entirely
Wait,
clear.
that's all
Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't be
Ray
so sure.
Hartman, the governor wants a tax cut from 5.4 to
Right.
4.7%. Before we hear what you have to say, do know that there are areas in the country like Nashville and Austin that are booming and there's no income tax whatsoever.
Right.
And do we really need the money? If there's all this money from the Rams and the federal government, we can't even figure out how to spend it, and we don't pull over people for expired plates who aren't paying their personal property tax and their sales tax. How badly
What
does
topic
the state of Missouri really need that money?
First of all, I don't think the Rams money has anything to do with the state of Missouri, but I mean the state of Missouri's general operating budget. I would say this: if someone wants to put together a comprehensive plan to change our tax structure and eliminate the income tax, but here's what we're going to do in its place, and here's our overall idea, and it'll actually bring more revenues. I think that's worth talking about. To simply cut revenues in the 40-something state, meaning we're basically 50th in paying our employees, we're 49th or 48th in teacher salaries, we're the same in support of higher education, corrections, everything is there's no honor in that, okay? We have a substandard state government because it's underfunded. If you're going to change the income tax, you've got to have something in its place. It's irresponsible to cut it in a vacuum.
You weren't against child tax credits. You weren't against
said-
handing $500 checks out in the
Right.
city of St. Louis. Why didn't you say then that money should have gone to teacher salaries?
As I said, if
No.
you want to, I'm not against every tax cut. I'm saying that in the case of the state of Missouri, which cannot fund its services at a respectable level compared to almost all the other states in the country, it's irresponsible to just eliminate a big source of revenue without anything in its place.
And I just don't think it's thought out. I really don't. I think this is just something like he can leave office and say, I cut taxes.
Right.
And that's all it is. And I don't think it's thought out. And I think that if you do take an action like that, you know, who's going to feel it first? Because ultimately somebody is. And it's just talk.
Well,
I mean,
they have
Right.
a surplus, and we know that people are struggling with inflation. So if you give them money back on April 15th, isn't that a good thing?
but we might not, we don't know where we're going to be at in 6 months. You know,
Right, there's nothing wrong with having some money laying around, Charlie.
yeah.
Well, we have like $1 billion laying around in the city, of
Well,
St. Louis,
we ought to-
County, and we can't even spend it.
At the moment, I think that Ray has a good point that our services are terrible, and education. I mean, we could spruce up the universities, the junior colleges, the high schools. We need to spend money on education.
And we could do more and spruce them up. We could cut tuition, which has gone through the roof, if I may say, for state schools. We could also improve our teacher salaries around the state. And the only when you say we can't
find it
spend,
fascinating you say that
Charlie,
because
when you say we can't
as-
spend it, it's because the Republican legislature
No.
won't spend
Quit
it. Not that we. No, it's true.
Okay,
they won't spend
so,
it.
okay, will
They
you
can.
therefore, unless the Rams money goes to schools and teachers, will you be upset?
I actually have a column next week in which I lay out what I think it ought to be
I
used
certainly
for.
think some of it should.
Yes, that's.
I'm-
I would-
I actually
Okay.
don't.
Yeah.
I'll
Stay
say-
tuned, Charlie.
I'll
That's
say
my
whether
column
I'm
next
upset
week.
or not until I see where the money is going. But if it doesn't go to some of those things,
Right.
then I
You know,
will be
next
upset.
week I've got
Okay.
some suggestions there, RT. We
hey.
can argue about that.
Well,
'cause they're
sounds good, Ray. We look forward to your columns every week.
No, we don't. But that's okay. I don't.
How about a couple of moments on Mark Coomer? Now, I don't think
Coomer.
most people
Coomer.
in our listening audience or viewing audience know Mark Coomer.
Right, correct.
Okay, very well. Mark Coomer wants to run for Board of Aldermen in the President of Board of Aldermen in the city of St. Louis, but he hasn't really lived in St. Louis for 5 years since 1997, and you have to live in the city for 5 years to be a candidate. So Jack Coder and Megan Green, the other candidates in the race, say he should be bounced. Ray, you agree with them, don't you?
I do not. I had him on the air. I'll say that. He is the
You're
only.
plugging your shows a lot tonight.
Yeah, I know. We're plugging him as much as we can. He is the Big 550 KTRS 9 to 11. Mark Coomer is the only one of the three who grew up in St. Louis. He's from St. Louis. He's spent much of his life here. He contests the facts of not that, and we'll see. They are using. I think it speaks very poorly, particularly Coder, but I guess both of them, that they are, and it also suggests to me that they're concerned about his candidacy. This young guy went out, and he's like 44, I think. He went out and got, I mean, so I say young.
all relative.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, he could be half my age and old. But he got well over the signatures he needed. I think he makes a lot of sense on issues, and I think that they are concerned about running against him because they wouldn't be doing this.
I think that if you are in a situation where you have moved back and you were supposed to live someplace 5 years and you didn't fulfill that requirement and you are bounced from the ballot, then that's, I don't want to say it's too bad, because I don't think they're not doing anything wrong by telling him you really shouldn't be on the ballot.
I
And if it's
think he-
upheld,
Right, if
that's
it-
just,
Well,
They're not.
that's the rules.
I think he's going to. I think he's going to
Consistency is a-
prevail. We'll see. I think if he prevails, they got a problem, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see. It probably will be in a
I
court.
think you need some name recognition to win. I mean, I don't think that Coomer or Cummer really has much of a chance.
Okay, we'll see.
Elvin Reed, this week the St. Louis County Council did not vote to approve $1.25 million federal dollars to help women who are seeking abortions. Of course, this is in reaction to the overturning of Roe versus Wade. It was 4-3. One Democrat, Shalonda Webb, went with the 3 Republicans. What's your analysis here?
Disappointed, just completely disappointed. Whatever her rationale or reasoning is not good enough, and I think it should be held against her when she runs again.
Well, she and Tim Fitch both said that this is just this is opening the door to a legal challenge on the part of the AG, and that
Yeah.
it's just going to be tangled up in
Yeah,
court.
yeah, let's go to court. So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'll be in the street. Right.
You'll be in the
right,
street.
right,
You'll
I'll
be
be
getting
in-
arrested.
You
See, I
file
think- I think
file
that's
cases that go to court. we'll be doing this and somebody else do something else, all peacefully. But no, so what? Sue, come on, Eric Schmidt, Sue. You like to sue? You like to sue everybody?
I think what Shalonda Webb did was, I think that is effective governance, and I think it's kind of refreshing.
Well, I think she's wrong, but I also think now that you mentioned Eric Schmidt as some unbeatable force in Republican politics, he sued almost every school district in the state. That is
And
not
a lot
normal.
of parents were happy about
And
that.
a lot of them weren't.
No, most of them weren't.
And a lot of schools, I will tell you, if he thinks that's part of me
Who
was
knows?
to think he might be very beatable.
Little bit off subject, but that was the American Recovery Plan Act money wasn't intended for people who are seeking abortions. I mean,
No.
so you really aren't being a good steward of the federal dollars if on the local level that's where you're putting your money. And as
And
Bill
that
made a
was
point a couple
Shalonda
weeks ago,
Webb's
Elvin,
point.
Fairview Heights, you don't need to subsidize transportation to Fairview Heights, right?
I was elected by the people who I represent, and if the people who represent don't like what I'm doing, then vote me out. In the meantime, all hands on deck. And if you don't want to be part of this scrap, then you just need to step down, because this is a scrap. And if you want to find some reason, like, oh, they're going to sue, or they're going to do this, well, then just go away, okay? It's time, all right? Everybody's got to look in the mirror and say, what side are you on? And she was on the wrong side this time.
Couldn't that money have been, we have 30 seconds to go, couldn't that money be easily raised privately?
I don't know, but the money is
1.25
right
million?
there.
I bet we could do it in 24 hours, raise $1 million for that cause.
Well, that money is sitting right there, and if they wanted to vote to use it for that cause and get sued and say you can't do it, then you go down that path till that path is blocked off, and then find another path.
As we often say, too many topics, too little time. Let's go to the old mailbag and see what viewers had to say. Happy birthday, Bill.
That's
Go
what they
Cards.
said.
From the Donnybrook cast and crew here in beautiful Grand Center. It's true, on Saturday, Bill will celebrate another one.
45?
We're just not going to say which one because it's nobody's business.
Well, I'm very public about
Happy
it. I'll
birthday.
be 75.
Wow,
Yes.
congratulations.
All right.
And I've made it this far without being able to name all the Supreme Court cases.
Boy, you just won't let that go.
You can run for the Senate.
Happy birthday,
Well,
Mr.
I'm-
Happy
Thank-
birthday,
thank you
Bill.
very much.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Now, do I have to try to blow this out on camera?
No,
You know what?
Just
Yeah.
let-
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's edition. Thanks for joining us at this rather unusual time. We encourage you to contact us and tweet about Donnybrook and more. We'll see you next week at this time. Our very special guest will be the Secretary of State for the state of Missouri. Jay Ashcroft will be joining Ray and me next up. That's next week. Have a great week. Stay cool.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.